In Genesis 5, we see some of the longest human lifespans ever recorded. But in Genesis 6:3, there's a dramatic shift. God declares a limit of 120 years for human life. What does this mean, and how does it affect the way we understand age in the Bible? Let's dive in. Remember, in Genesis 5, we get a fascinating genealogy from Adam to Noah, the key feature being the long lifespans of the patriarchs, many of whom lived for hundreds of years. Now let's turn to Genesis 6:3, which marks a significant shift. After generations of people living for centuries, God declares, "My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years." This is a game changer. What does this mean? There are two main interpretations of this verse. The first is that God is setting a limit on human lifespans. The second interpretation is that the 120 years refers to the time remaining before the flood, giving humanity 120 more years to repent before God's judgment would come. Which interpretation is correct? It depends on how you read the context. A literal interpretation would mean that after Genesis 6, humans would live no more than 120 years. A symbolic interpretation would see the 120 years as a time of grace before the flood, not a literal cap on human life. So what does this all mean for how we understand the ages in Genesis 5 compared to Genesis 6 verse 3? Well, there's a clear shift from the long lifespans in Genesis 5 to the 120-year limit in Genesis 6 verse 3. If Genesis 6 is about shortening lifespans, this could reflect God's judgment on human sinfulness, marking the end of an era where people lived long lives in a purer world. The long ages in Genesis 5 may also have symbolic significance, representing the purity and closeness to God in the early generations. After Genesis 6 verse 3, humanity's relationship with God had changed, and the limit on lifespan could reflect the consequences of sin and the coming judgment in the flood. Both interpretations carry deep theological implications. Whether viewed as a literal age limit or a period of divine mercy, Genesis 6 verse 3 serves as a turning point in the story of humanity. Genesis 5 and Genesis 6 verse 3 show us the transition from an era of long lifespans to a much shorter human life. The shift from centuries to 120 years marks a change in human history, reflecting both God's judgment on sin and His mercy towards humanity. Whether you interpret these ages literally or symbolically, they remind us of God's sovereignty over time and life.